Hey guys, today we'll be painting this human fighter mini for D&D. This is a mini I picked up from my brother-in-law for one of our D&D campaigns. It's actually the campaign from the starter set. First thing we have to do is to get rid of the warping on the sword. For that, I've boiled some water and put it in a bowl. I'm just going to hold the sword in the bowl for a few seconds to soften it up. Once I have it in the place that I want, I'll dip it into a second bowl full of ice water and try to set it in place. I'm doing the ice water off camera. I've also got a second human fighter mini to paint, and this one has a really bad warp in it, so I'm going to try to fix that one now as well. Okay, next we've got to clean off these mold lines. I'm just using a standard utility knife. You can pick it up from the dollar store, or the hardware stores sometimes have them in like packs of 5 or whatever. For some of the more detailed parts, like the hair, I'm using a needle file. And now to the fun part. We'll start with base coating the pants. I think I'm using Reaper Muddy Olive for this, but I can't quite remember. It's just a dark olive green. I'm not too worried about getting this color on the other parts, since I'm going to be going over them later with brown, and that'll cover it pretty well if I make any mistakes. That's why I'm starting here too. I find it best to start in the deepest recessed parts of the model so that you don't have to try and paint them later without getting paint all over the parts you've already done. Next, I'm starting on the leather armor. I'm using a Vallejo brown for this. My camera can only record in 20-minute increments, so I had gone on to the hair and didn't realize that it had stopped recording. I think all I did to get the darker shade was to add a little bit of black to the brown that I was using for the leather. Next, I'm mixing up some gray, using white, black, and blue. I'm applying this to the boots. Next, I've added a little bit of yellow into the brown just to make a variation in my leather colors, and going back over all the leather parts I didn't paint yet. Now I'm using slightly more of the yellow mix with the brown to highlight some of the leather. For the skin, I really want to maximize the contrast. I'm starting the base coat with quite a dark shade of brown. Once all the skin is painted, the model starts to look pretty monotonous and boring, so the highlights are really going to be key to making this look good. I'm using a technique I learned from Ben Comets on one of his videos on painting Buddha. He calls it the loaded brush technique, where he loads the brush with the same color as his base coat, and then adds a little bit of his highlight color to the tip of the brush, and then he's able to wet blend without wasting time cleaning his brush while his previous color dries. I'm not very good at this technique yet, so I'm glazing over the transition between colors with a super thin coat of the base color. For the eyes, I was trying to find the right balance between too thin and not thin enough. I think I had too much water in my brush because I just ended up flooding the model with white. But that's okay, we can just go over our skin tone again. But we have to wait for the white to dry, so let's highlight the rest of the skin in the meantime. Once that's all fixed, it's time for the black dots for the pupils. And unfortunately, I moved the model closer to my face and ended up doing this out of frame. But yeah, it's pretty much as simple as putting a small dot of black in the eye in roughly the same position as in the other eye. If one pupil is like up too high or too far to one side, it looks really derpy, so you might have to try a few times before you get it right. If you mess up, just go over the eye in white again and start over. Next, we're going over the leather with another highlight. This time, I think I added a little red to the brown to give it more variation. I kept changing the color mixture as I added highlights to different areas, trying not to give all the different leather pieces the same exact color palettes. Next, we're highlighting the hair with just plain brown. And again, I forgot to check my camera and skipped ahead a bit. I decided to try and do some non-metallic metal for the first time, so I've base coated all the metal with a medium gray tone. On this shoulder pad, I decided to put the reflection right at the top, since you'll most be looking at this mini from a high angle. I don't think this was the best choice, but it was probably the easiest. I'm just working on getting a smooth color transition from white to black here. I probably went over the whole thing about 7 or 8 times before I was actually happy with it. To show the different plates, I just gave all the edges and rivets a highlight with pure white. I also did similar color transitions on the sword and the knife, and the mug or horn or whatever it is he has on his belt. Also the belt buckle and the rivets on his leather armor. Also for the knife, I did a gold handle using yellows and browns instead of gray and black as my main colors. Finally, it's time for the piece of cloth he has on his waist. My brother comes from a line of Scottish descent on his mother's side. Her maiden name is McLean, so I've decided to paint this in the McLean tartan pattern. Starting off, we'll base coat the whole thing in red. I'm giving it a brown wash to bring out some of the detail and to make it look a little more worn and dirty. I also noticed a few more rivets I had missed earlier, so I'm going back over them with gray and white highlights, and a few more touch-ups while I wait for the wash to dry. Okay, the wash is dried, so I'm putting on some highlights with the original base color. And finally, we'll start to add the tartan pattern. I'm purposely not trying to cover the old color completely, as with tartans, the two colors blend together when they overlap. Finally, just adding the blue stripes in. And we'll call this one done. Thanks for watching.